HD, and WJZ.com, Baltimore.
Direct from Television Hill, Campaign 2010. The Candidates Debate. Now, here's WJZ's Denise Koch.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Over the next hour, we will hear from both candidates for Maryland governor. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Baltimore Jewish Council, and we thank them for being with us today. Our candidates, of course, Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley and former Governor Robert Ehrlich. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute and 30 seconds to make an opening statement. And then we will move on to the issues. This is how it'll work. I will establish a topic. I will pose a question on that topic. Each candidate will then have up to 2 minutes and 40 seconds to present his views. I will then choose whether to follow up or whether to move on to the next issue. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for closing statements at the end of this debate. Tonight's debate is also being broadcast statewide, and we welcome you on Maryland Public Television, on WYPR Radio Baltimore, WUSA Digital 9.2 Washington, and WJZ.com worldwide on the web. Over the past weeks, many WJZ viewers have emailed suggested questions for the candidates. We thank you for those. We have read them, all of them. We have used many of them as we have decided on tonight's topics of discussion. Now, we really did have a coin toss just moments ago before this broadcast, and that has determined that Governor Robert Ehrlich will go first with his opening statements. Welcome, Governor.
Denise, thank you for doing this. We were joking off camera. You must have lost your coin toss to do this, but we thank you very much for your time. Gov, good to see you. Thanks. We've been mixing it up. Everybody's talking about the race. It's one of the most interesting races in the country. Thank you for doing this. We're doing this a bunch of times, everyone. This is the first of 4 or 5 debates, Denise, as you know. And so I want to thank, by the way, all the sponsors of this debate as well, all the folks in the studio audience, all the elected officials, and thank you all very much for watching. It's a consequential race, obviously, because when you elect an executive, executives count. Executives impact lives. They impact business cycles. They impact the ability to create jobs in a particular state. They impact taxpayers. They impact our vision and our future. So that's the reason we have so much interest in this debate. That's the reason all the signs and bumper stickers are running around. That's the reason all the TV commercials are running as well. Governors count. Now, we have very different views with regard to the bottom line, which is making Maryland better, of course. Governor O'Malley has a particular view with regard to progress in our state. I have a far different view. Obviously, job creation being the #1 issue in this campaign. And the fact of it is, a lot of these commercials that you've seen attempt to litigate the past. They attempt to litigate things about me. This is not a personality contest, folks. It's not Martin O'Malley, Bob Ehrlich. It's about you. It's not about, in fact, whatever 30-second attack ad happens to say at this particular night, and you've been seeing them on your airways as well. It's about us, our future, taxpayers. It's about business creation. It's about you. You count. You get the vote. We're just 2 guys who want to lead. It's a great honor to lead this state. Obviously, for 4 years, I've loved my time in public service in the state legislature, in the Congress of the United States, and representing you as your governor. Obviously, thought I was retired. We're back. 4 years ago, back again. Here we go. In any event, folks, we thank you very much for watching tonight. We thank you for your interest. We thank you for your enthusiasm. We thank you for the fact that you care about this consequential race. And, folks, governors count. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward, Gov, to talking about the issues.
Thank you, Governor Ehrlich. Governor O'Malley.
Hey, thank you, Denise, and thank you, Governor Ehrlich. I want to begin by thanking the people of our state. I want to thank the people of our state for giving me the honor of serving you in these very challenging and difficult times for every family and every business in our state. But as this national recession comes to a close, our state is moving forward. We are starting to create jobs again in Maryland, and we are transforming our economy through innovation and through education, and we're doing it better than most states, but we have a lot of important and urgent work to do. You have a clear choice to make in this contest. It is whether we move forward to better days or whether we slip back. And I humbly ask for your support to move Maryland forward. Every decision I've made over these last difficult years has been made with one consideration only, and that is what is best for the people of Maryland. What is best for families as they plan and protect their own future around their kitchen tables throughout our state. I have fought every battle on your side standing up to big mortgage companies as homeowners try to protect their homes. I've stood up to big utilities for Maryland consumers. With fiscal discipline and with decisiveness, I have cut our state spending by more than any governor in Maryland history, and more importantly, together, we have found ways to protect the priorities that allow us to make this transformation to a better new economy, improving schools, investing in innovation, making college more affordable for more families, making neighborhoods safer, and yes, taking the strong actions that are working to improve the health of the Chesapeake Bay. I'm optimistic about the future, that better future that you and I have the ability to achieve for our children by moving forward. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Governor. All right, the first topic today, and both of you have touched on it already, the most numbers of viewers' questions we got were always surrounding the topic of the economy. The economy. Budgets have been slashed and programs have been cut. So many of our viewers want to know, what do you say to Marylanders who say, how are you going to stop this trend? How instead are you going to help Maryland's economy grow?
This has been a big issue, Denise. We've been going around the state in these small business roundtables. And, Gov, you know, the governor really has a big impact on the regulatory environment in your state. And the fact of it is we have some really broken state agencies that have been increasingly hostile to business and business creation in the state. We've seen the latest scandal on the dollar, for example, our so-called Business Regulation Agency. We have the Department of the Environment, which is increasingly hostile to job creators in the state. We have not created one net new job in this state over the past 4 years, Denise. And that's a real problem. We've doubled our unemployment rate, in fact. And that is a huge problem. We seem to have job growth in the public sector because of BRAC and base closing and because of stimulus and all this. But the fact of it is you have to have a healthy private sector. You have to, particularly what we control, Gov, you know we control, to some extent, tax policy, and we control some tort policy, legal policy. We don't really control the private sector concerning liquidity. But you and I both know we control the regulatory environment in this state. And to the extent you have hostile environment created, to the extent you have business people just hurting around the state of Maryland as a result of actions by state regulators, you have a loss of jobs. And Denise, that's what I hear time and time again around the state from the small business community, the people that really are the backbone of our economy and our state. It's a cliche, folks, but it's the truth. Small business is the backbone of our economy. We talk about it, it's even a cliche. But to the extent you're governor and you have this direct responsibility for job creation, you really need to think about the people you put in charge and the fact that business people need answers. They need consistency. They need a welcoming environment, not hostility. This election is really about how we view small business and the small business sector. Is it a source of revenue? Is it simply a source of more dollars to the state that we can tax and tax and tax and spend and spend and spend? Or is it a source of job creation? I believe in job creation. That's why National Federation of Independent Business, the #1 job creation group in this country, the small business people, the people that are the backbone of this country, they support me. They've always supported me, and they certainly support me in this election. We can't have an economy in Maryland simply dependent on the fortuitous nature of federal spending or the latest base closings or whatever it happens to be. We need a healthy private sector. Under Governor O'Malley, our private sector has suffered, and the facts speak for themselves.
All right, thank you. Governor?
Well, Denise, our country's going through a tough recession over the course of these last 3 years. And I don't think that there's a single family or business that's been spared this national, this global recession. But our economy is an innovation economy. And it is an innovation economy that is fueled by small business. 2/3 out of all jobs created in our state are created by small business. But nonetheless, as a state, we need to take stock of our competitive strengths in this environment. I'll make no apologies for standing up when necessary to environmental polluters and for protecting our quality of life and the health of the Bay. I believe that there's some things we can only do together, and protecting our natural resources is one of those things. And surely we have plenty of room for improvement, greater openness, transparency, predictability on regulations. But really the key to creating jobs is making this transition into this new economy of innovation. And we have some strong sectors. I have been supported by over 200 business people throughout our state, many of them in some of these leading sectors of life science and biotech, where even in the face of this downturn, we've moved up from 4th place ranking to 2nd place. Last year, we had one of the highest performing technology sectors in the country. because we're moving forward. The truth of the matter is we have actually created over 33,000 net new jobs. That's not me saying that. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And we have to continue to create jobs because we have a deep hole to climb out of. This recession has cost all of us over these last 3 years. But for all of our anger and frustration at this recession, that anger and frustration isn't going to move us forward. What's going to move us forward are things like increasing the biotech tax credit, creating the Invest Maryland Fund, which allows us to get more venture capital into businesses and the startups that are happening in Maryland. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Denise, hardly a mouthpiece for the O'Malley Brown administration or the Maryland Democratic Party, has named our state one of the top 2 best states in America for innovation and entrepreneurship. Healing, health, discovery, we sit in the center of a corridor of innovation, provided we protect our investment in the most important quantity of all, which is the talents, the skills, the education level of our people, which Forbes magazine ranks as one of the top 3 in the country.
Denise, but this is really the issue of the campaign. This is what it's all about. And Governor, you know that. We love the federal sector. We love federal spending. We love NIH, and we love Pax River. We love Fort Meade, and we love Aberdeen Proving Grounds. These are federal facilities. They're posts. They spend a lot of money here, as we know. But the fact of it is we've dropped in our business ratings significantly. We have 216,000 Marylanders out of work. The Tax Foundation and various rating groups rate us one of the worst business environments in the country because we've gone from the 20s to the 40s. When I was first elected, the Baltimore Business Journal took a survey, and they said, is Maryland a pro-business state? And we were in the 30s. When we left office, many of you will recall, we had unemployment around 4, under 4. And we had doubled that business confidence. We were in the 70s, and now we're back to the 30s. We're there because of this hostile regulatory environment, the largest tax increase in Maryland history, certain interest groups controlling the agenda of state government. Job creation is the issue in this campaign. Who best to create private sector jobs? Governor, we're not talking about public sector jobs. Maryland always creates public sector jobs. We're good at that. And we brought BRAC, as you know, and Lieutenant Governor Brown's been in charge of your operation to that extent, but we brought BRAC here. That was a great success of our administration. We need to create private sector jobs, the jobs that really count, to help with our underpinnings with regard to the public sector.
Well, jobs are important, but first, Governor, there was another thing you mentioned in there which I think is very important to a lot of people who've written in. Someone named Sean said he wants to know whether you will, forget jobs, let's talk about his wallet. He wants to know whether you will pledge not to raise taxes or significant fees in the coming years.
I'll tell you what I will pledge. I've never done that sort of irresponsible blanket pledge, but I will pledge not to raise property taxes like you raised property taxes, Governor, when you were governor in easier times. I will pledge not to jack up college tuition by 40%. I will pledge not to increase by 300% the annual filing fees for every small business incorporated by Maryland. And I will pledge to not pretend that fees are not taxes. Denise, in the toughest of times, we have cut state spending more than any governor in Maryland history. In fact, state spending is 3% less now than it was 4 years ago. When the former governor was governor, in easier times, he actually increased spending, state spending, by 33%. More than Glendenning ever did in a 4-year period of time, more than Schaefer in a 4-year period of time. And yet, we have protected the priorities that have allowed our economy to outperform virtually every other state. We have held on to our private job base better than all but 4 other states in the union. We are now creating jobs at twice the rate of the rest of the nation, and at a faster rate than our neighbors in Virginia. And the jobs that I'm talking about are the small, innovative companies that are popping up and starting all over Maryland, even in the face of this recession, and are really the cutting edge of this new economy. I was up in Edgewood the other day at Smith's Detection. That's 65 additional jobs. I was out at Life Technologies in Frederick last week, 100 additional jobs. MedImmune, Human Genome Sciences, where Tom Watkins believes we are a very strong state for this new innovation economy if we move forward.
Well, on the issue, just one second before you go, Governor, because I think you'll want to address this. On the issue of jobs and job creation, we received lots and lots and lots of inquiries from people who work for the state workers. For instance, there's a viewer, Kaiser from Baltimore, Debbie from Edgemere, who says they want to know, what can you promise state workers? A lot of them are taking home less money. A lot of them are facing furloughs. They're having a very difficult time making ends meet.
I've always rejected furloughs as a management tactic, and you haven't. And we had the opportunity, as you know, and that option in 2003, Governor, and I rejected it. And what it does, Denise, it demoralizes the people that wake your state up in the morning and put it to sleep at night. These are the people that really, these are the social workers that run out in dangerous neighborhoods. They're the public safety folks, and you did furlough public safety personnel, as you know. Now, Denise, we need to get back to some of the issues that have been raised, because I've been waiting for this. This has been great. I sit on my TV. Drew and I watch TV every night, and we see the O'Malley commercials. And Gov, you said you cut state spending. Well, we added up your budgets over 4 years. Do you know what they added to? $124 billion. Mine, $101 billion. You're $23 billion over. That's not a rounding error. That really counts. That's big-time money. You replace state money with federal stimulus dollars, as you know,
sure
in many
did.
cases.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm speaking now, it's in my time. Now, as far as the property tax, the governor doesn't set the property tax, does he? The Board of Public Works, you're a member of that Board of Public Works, as you know.
Yes, I do.
That's right, and you have to back up our debt for Wall Street to keep our AAA bond rating to set the property tax appropriately, as you know. Tuition, I got an interesting number for you, and people watching really need to, I think, listen to this, because they've been hearing sort of this demagoguery for a while now on the college freeze. The system freeze started under our administration, 3 years under yours, and it went up again this year. But folks, the total cost of education in those system schools at College Park has increased 35%. Now, you like to talk about fees. From $16,000 to $22,000, those fees have skyrocketed. So you should know the difference between tuition and fees. This really counts. These are middle-class folks, working-class folks, like I came from, a lot of folks that really depend on financial aid. In our administration, we doubled need-based financial aid because tuition in the system schools did increase. We now have, what, a 94% increase in folks waiting for need-based aid in Maryland. Not only that, Gov, what your freeze has done, in fact, is cause less Maryland kids to be admitted to Maryland schools. And we have the numbers to back it up. Towson's really been hammered. In fact, less Maryland kids getting admitted to Towson College Park. Why? Because of the freeze. The freeze went on too long. The freeze hurt our system. The freeze hurt the ability of Maryland families, those working families in that table you carry around, to really take their kids to a system school, to a Maryland school, to stay in the state. And getting Maryland kids to stay in the state is real important.
Let's get the governor a chance to respond.
Hey, thanks, Denise. Where to begin with all of that? Let me begin with the most important thing, which is college tuition and making it more affordable. Over these last 10 years, Denise, we've slipped from a nation that educated more of our people with college education, and now I think we rank about 9th. And that happened just in a 10-year period of time. So making college more affordable for more families is critically important to making this transition to an innovation economy, creating jobs in this new economy for the future. All of those things that the former governor cited, the charges for dorms and food and those things, they went up when he was governor as well. What he had the discretion to do or to not to do, though, was to make investments in higher education so that kids did not get hit with a 40% increase for in-state college. Now, I watch those numbers very closely about how many students are coming out of state, how many are coming in state, and the fact of the matter is they've remained very constant over the last 5-6 years. But you had the ability, Governor, to do as I did, which was to freeze college tuition. For your first 3 years in office, you never did it. In fact, one of your biggest accomplishments was to force a 40% increase in college tuition. Right up on an election year, yes, you did something different and you froze it for 1 year. But we are the only state in the country to go 4 years in a row without a penny's increase to college tuition, and I'm proud of that. Furthermore, the property tax, Governor, you actually did vote to increase the property tax. And you know you did it, and you did it at the Board of Public Works, and perhaps you thought no one would notice that. But when an election year came around, you tried to cover your tracks by cutting a penny or two off of the increase that you had made 3 years before.
You know, I'm really happy. Well, Denise, I really get to respond here because it's important. This is, the ads have been running. I didn't even bring up the fact that property tax went down. You're right. Thank you for reminding me of that. I appreciate that. But the fact of it is, Denise, governors do not set tuitions. And everybody listening, it may be a new news item for some folks. Governors do not set tuitions, the Board of Regents sets tuitions. Obviously, and with regard to state property tax, the same thing. So what you see from these ads is the half-truth. It's the get over to the next election thing. And that's what this election is all about, because that's going to stop on November 2nd.
All right, that's our goal here within this hour, is to try and get on certain points here. And let's go back to education, not on college tuition. Let's go to something that affects many, many families in this country, in this state, and that is public education. And we had a lot of viewers' questions on this issue. Marie in Baltimore asked, what will you do to improve public education in low-performing schools?
We were very fortunate because of the investments we've protected. Record investments in public education, even as I have had to cut our state budget by $5.6 billion in state spending. We've nonetheless, and thanks in part to presidential leadership, been able to provide record funding for our schools. And they've been recognized by experts around the country as the best, or among the best, certainly, in the nation. But there's still too many schools that are underperforming, so that's why we joined forces. We were one of only 10 states, Denise, to win the Race to the Top grants. And part of that involves a much more robust and effective approach to turning around underperforming schools. How do you do that? You do that in a number of ways. We have doubled the number of charters in our state over the last 4 years. In fact, when I was mayor of Baltimore, we had more charters in Baltimore than on the rest of the state combined. But we are also going to be investing in a system that tracks a student's education all the way through school. Many of our students in poor areas move a lot from school to school. We also have incentives to attract great leaders and great teachers to what have been hard to recruit to schools in some tough areas. That's all part of our Race to the Top effort, building on the tremendous accomplishments of parents, administrators, teachers, and really the people of Maryland, who understand that the most important thing to making this change to a new economy is protecting the education of our children. So those are some of the things that we're going to be able to do in the immediate future.
Denise, we will always have pretty good schools because we're a pretty wealthy state. And we supported Thornton. I campaigned on it. As you know, Thornton being the major boost in public education, despite the fact the legislature did not give me a funding source, which was a slots bill, as you know. We funded to the tune of $1.4 billion. So, Governor, I think we can actually agree Maryland schools are pretty good generally. We have some terrific schools, and we know the subdivisions we're talking about, Howard County, Montgomery County, and others. We tend to focus in our administration on the dysfunctional schools. Now, I don't want to relitigate the issue of those 11 schools in Baltimore City that the Maryland legislature, the Maryland General Assembly just had to protect the system when those 11 schools were failing. And we had kids with pass rates of 4% and 6% and 8%, folks. And you and your leadership in an election year just had to protect those numbers. You couldn't allow those schools to go charter or private vendor because it would have been an embarrassment in an election year. That was the most disgraceful episode, and I'm not blaming all of you, trust me, there were a lot of folks involved here. But I've never seen political leaders protect a monopoly as I did that year. We had 11 schools with kids being denied their constitutional rights, mostly African-American kids in Baltimore City, and nobody cared enough, other than us and some members of the General Assembly, a lot of Republicans and a couple Democrats. It was one of the worst episodes I've ever seen of protecting a monopoly as opposed to kids. We passed the first charter school legislation in history of the state over the objection of the Maryland State Teachers Association, and thank God for Mike Miller, quite frankly, who allowed us to pass that bill. We now have one residential charter in our city. We've have 44 charter schools, in fact, 34 in Baltimore City, and we need to focus innovative approaches to education where we're hurting, where the kids are being denied their constitutional rights. The fact that you're born poor should not be a predictor of the quality of public education you receive. That's why we funded Thornton when the legislature stopped my funding source. So we can go residential charter. Next, by the way, I want to quadruple. We have one in the city of Baltimore. This allows kids to not only learn, but learn in a safe environment. We can bring some mentor programs into all Title I schools in Baltimore City. We generally have pretty good schools, and we always will. We need to focus where the kids are being denied their rights. And that episode in 2006, although it's past, is really relevant to today because those kids were denied their constitutional rights. Your color, your ethnicity, your background, your race, what you look like should not be a predictor of the quality of public education you receive.
Denise, I really need to respond. I promise to be brief.
Okay.
I'm going to be really, really brief. The residential charter school, of which the former governor referenced, the Seed School, was a charter school that I recruited to Baltimore. I was there at the groundbreaking. I've been there every step of the way, and it's a good thing. But that incident, so described by you in 2006, Governor, that wasn't about protecting a monopoly. That was about protecting the progress of kids, especially in the city of Baltimore, where 10 years ago, not one grade scored majority proficient in reading or math. Today, 1 through 8 are scoring majority proficient in reading and math. And furthermore, as a state, we have cut the achievement gap between black and white students in half in recent years, and I'm tired of people putting down the achievements of poor children and children of color. We move forward as a state, and we move forward together, and we move forward as one people.
This is really emotional, Gov.
Sure is.
Because when you have schools that are graduating, or if not graduating, 85% of their kids, and you have kids achieving 6 and 8 and 12% pass rates, those kids of color are being denied their constitutional rights. That's intolerable and unacceptable in the state of Maryland, United States of America in 2010, 26, whenever.
Why don't you come with me to Patterson Park Charter School? Why don't you ever
I've been
mention the
I've been to those charter
Why don't
schools,
you
Governor.
ever mention the places where kids are making progress? You always talk, Bob, in very coded language about the kids that aren't succeeding. Frankly, I will put our progress up in the city of Baltimore and our rate of improvement up against any kids in any major city in America.
I will always talk about the kids who are being denied their constitutional rights.
Yeah, but
this
you
is
never
emotional.
talk about the things they're
Governor,
doing well, do you?
Governor,
and you never talk about the progress we're making.
We love progress. When the kids are being denied their constitutional rights and they're passing functional tests at 5 and 10 and 15% rates, those kids are being denied their constitutional rights.
And you want to cut their funding for education if you're elected, and you cut school construction funding in easier times, Governor.
Governor, you cut $150 million out of school construction this election year. So I'm not going to hear that.
If I can interject for a second, because it's my job, and I lost the coin toss, as you said.
You did. Now you're paying the price, Denise.
Yes. Let's talk about somebody who gets blamed for these kids and the lack of education they may or may not be getting, and that's the teachers. Because as you can imagine, we heard from a lot of teachers when we asked people to send us their questions. And there was a teacher named Janet in Arnold who sent this email, Governor O'Malley. She said she has not had a raise in 3 years. She has been furloughed. And she wants to know if Maryland wants to keep highly qualified teachers, how will each candidate restore the pay scale for teachers and fund programs that have been cut from the schools?
Well, these have been difficult years. And I had a choice, Denise, at the state level, and individual school districts are making similar choices, and in the counties. And my choice was, do we do furloughs and all of us weather this together, or we do what the former governor likes to call restructuring? What we've seen in other states means massive layoffs. In California, they put 20, 30,000 teachers in unemployment lines. We need to make our economy recover. We need to make this transition to a new economy so that we can get our revenues back up. We've had the best year of new job creation this year that we've had since the year 2000. And that's that better future that we need to get to. We have nonetheless been able to protect, because of our teachers' commitment, we've been able to protect our advances in the achievement levels of our children, which are higher now than they've been at any time since the latest MSA test started back in 2003. And a lot of that credit goes, yes, to parents, yes, to teachers, yes, to administrators, and really to everyone who's pulling together in the toughest times to make sure that our education of our children does not become another casualty of this recession.
The massive layoffs you're talking about did not occur under our administration nor in the state of Maryland. We just have a different philosophical view on furloughs. Furloughs constitute a management tactic, Denise. And what they do is save you X amount of dollars. Now, in many cases, they don't save as much as you think, because supervisors will come in on weekends and actually work time and a half. And so the savings you receive are not necessarily what you think they are when you institute a furlough. But the message here to state employees is we appreciate what you do. These are hard jobs. I've never beat up on state employees, and some folks in my party, quite frankly, have over the years. I have not. Now, furloughs send a very clear message to you, which is thanks for what you're doing, but just take the hit. They discourage folks who really get your state up in the morning, as I said earlier. They discourage the people who really protect us from violent criminals, who build our roads. Social workers, as I said, parole and probation agents, the people who make the state go. These are not particularly sexy jobs. A lot, by the way, our folks rely on this income. They're single parents, obviously. They're not two-income households. So you're really hitting people where they live. I know you do this populist thing and talk about working families and all that, but working families have been hammered over the past 4 years. Sales tax increase, community colleges getting hurt, furloughs for state employees, all regressive, all really hurt working people where they live. And this state, we have a lot of working people. And the reason there's so many signs in the Baltimore suburbs these times, those working neighborhoods, those folks, some of whom voted for you last time, they got it. They really got it. And they understand. And that's why they're coming out in big numbers for us in 2010.
Denise, we actually increased funding for community colleges. And one of the first acts that you took as governor, former governor, was to throw out and go to court to throw out contracts that had been negotiated with public employee unions. And furthermore, you have said, and I'm not making this up, these were words out of your mouth, that you would cut education if you were elected. What do you think happens to teachers then? You might be able to keep this division in your fantasy world that somehow you've stuck to a promise of not doing furloughs, but I think that would be very little comfort to tens of thousands of teachers who would then be put in unemployment lines while class sizes go up and the education of our children suffers. We've made big investments in community colleges. We have made investments in school construction when you cut it in easier time, and we're the only state in the country to go 4 years in a row without a penny's increase to college tuition. That's after you made decisions to cut higher ed and forced them to jack up college tuition by 40% for Maryland kids.
You know, if this one program you're talking about was so darn important to you, Geographic Cost of Education Index, that's what we're talking about, why didn't you fund it? You funded for surplus dollars, didn't you? You took surplus dollars, temporary revenue streams from the federal government that were going away. They're just going away, and they're going away this year. So if this was a priority to you, my lawyer, obviously Attorney General Curran, opined that this was not part of Thornton, as you well know. We didn't fund it in 2003. It was a deal struck in the 2002 session just to get the Thornton formula passed, just to get that bill passed. It was never part of Thornton. You didn't find it a priority, did you? You didn't fund it with state dollars. You threw extra surplus dollars because they came in the door in a temporary way. Now we're in a fix, Denise. You talk about being in a fix. We've had $3.7 billion of surplus come to our state over the past couple of years. You've taken 2/3 out of every dollar and stuck them into recurring spending programs, Medicaid and K through 12. And now, do you know why we have these structural deficits? Because those dollars have stopped. Washington is going to change big time in a few weeks. Trust me, those dollars have stopped.
Trust you?
And we are in a ban.
Trust you?
A
why
bind.
are you calling these, I'm not sure why he calls them surplus dollars. These were dollars that were the recovery and reinvestment dollars, I think, that he's talking about, and they were intended by Congress and by taxpayers here in Maryland and their representatives and our president to make sure we protect our children's education in these tough times and also the most vulnerable among us in terms of health care. We ramped up to GCI. We did it in a fiscally responsible way, and we are one of only 8 states that still has a AAA bond rating, Denise. And furthermore, we've improved outcomes for students throughout our state, and we are going to continue to do it. We've made different choices when we were in. In the toughest of times, I have protected education. I've made college more affordable. In easier times, the former governor always looked for ways to get out of funding education. He cut school construction, and he forced a 40% increase in college tuition.
Governor, stimulus dollars by any other name. Well, Denise, stimulus dollars by any other name is temporary spending from the federal government to the state government. And as you know, those dollars are gone.
Well, we're picking apart a very important but a very small point, and there are big issues that we haven't gotten to yet that's a lot of people out there
we
really
need more
want to hear
time,
about.
Denise.
I know we do, but we don't have it. So let's move on to crime, if we will. We heard from Nicholas in Pasadena. He wants to know, will you reform firearms laws? A lot of people are concerned about firearm laws.
Well, I've been a pro-Second Amendment vote throughout my entire public career. Interestingly enough, when you look at how these bills work, they tend to only penalize law-abiding citizens. I, in addition, have supported programs such as Exile throughout my congressional years and as governor. Exile targets felon in possession cases, and you're a criminal defense attorney, you know about Exile Gov. The fact of it is, it's bad guys with guns and addiction that drives our problem. We can agree on this, by the way. We can agree as far as the baseline of what causes gun violence in our city and state and country. It's driven by addiction. I've always voted to focus state resources, the law, on those who misuse firearms, not law-abiding citizens. It's why I've been supported by Second Amendment groups throughout my public career. These issues are now more important and relevant given recent Supreme Court decisions, as you know. People should have a right to protect themselves in their home. They have a right, a personal right, to a firearm to protect themselves. That's now clear pursuant to the United States Supreme Court. So I support these decisions. It's been my philosophical orientation and voting record throughout my public career. Everybody knows it. Governor now has really never had an opportunity, never being in a legislature, to vote on these issues, but my voting record is quite clear.
Governor O'Malley?
Denise, there's no more sacred responsibility than any of us in public service have than the protection of public safety. And it is true that guns, gun violence, and drugs fuel the crime that's out there. And it is also true we need to do a much better job of cracking down on those that use guns. However, we have a big difference between us. I do believe that there are appropriate things that we can do with our laws to keep drug dealers from being able to access firearms that spew out bullets faster than any arms that we give our police. But on the issue of public safety, we have done a much better job as a state and also as a city over the last 10 years, notwithstanding all the downing of Baltimore that we used to hear from the former governor. The city of Baltimore achieved the biggest reduction in overall crime over the last 10 years of any of the major cities in America, and the third biggest reduction in violent crime, only behind Los Angeles and New York. What we have done in the last few years, though, and what we can do moving forward, is make sure that parole, probation, and juvenile services, along with corrections, are actually engaged in this crime fight. We've created a new unit called the Violence Prevention Initiative. We target the most violent parolees and probationers, and we go after them and make sure they're much more closely monitored than we were before. When I was elected, Denise, we were left a 24,000 sample DNA backlog, a backlog that was allowed to grow under the former governor, a backlog that they never bothered to address, along with another 15,000 DNA samples that should have been taken. We've now cleared that backlog. We've made investments, important investments in our state crime lab, and there are 270 violent felons that have been charged only because we're doing a better job of backing up our police officers with the technology they need, with a DNA lab that works. And we're also doing a much better job of working together to target those that use guns in crimes of violence over and over again. We still have a long way to go. There is no reason we should satisfy ourselves with being one of the most educated states in America and at the same time allow a level of violence that we have in our state. We're moving in the right direction. I think we were ranked roughly 4th in violence when the former governor was in. Now we're down around 8 or 9. But we've got a long way to go, but we can get there by working together.
Right.
Wow, there's a lot there, Denise. Hold on, I need some time. The DNA sample bill was a prerogative initiative of our administration. It's again, so it's half stories here. I inherited this, I inherited that. We allowed, for the first time, those samples to be taken upon conviction. So that was our bill, which created the database, which created the new work, which created the ability of the system, as you know, Governor, to work. So you have to actually tell the whole story when it comes to criminal justice and every other issue for that matter. Secondly, you had a lot of folks arrested in Baltimore City. A lot of African Americans were arrested. Was it one out of every 8 or 9 folks in Baltimore City were arrested in your tenure? And you talk about this sort of this racial tension that lies beyond some of your comments about talking bad about Baltimore. I didn't order that, that's for sure. And a lot of people were upset, and it was wrong. And a lot of innocent people were arrested and thrown behind bars, and then they were let out a few hours later for no apparent reason. So that's your record. Let's live with it.
There's a lot more people living
Well,
because
this is my time now. This is my time. As far as the ability of the state to do what it needs to do with regard to guns and guns violence, I've supported InstaCheck. I've supported processes and initiatives that I think make sense to keep firearms out of the hands of violent criminals. The issues that you have come down on the wrong side, in my view, we have a legitimate philosophical debate on this, for the most part penalize law-abiding people, people who are not the problem, people who are simply in order to secure a firearm, are given more obstacles in order to exercise their constitutional rights. Because the Supreme Court has now opined repeatedly over the past few years on this issue, it appears that there's more momentum with regard to my view of the Second Amendment. And I think that's good for our society as well. And I think it's good for crime and punishment.
Quick response?
Yeah, I disagree on that. And the fact of the matter is, this DNA backlog went totally unanalyzed. It's like, I mean, you didn't bother to analyze the samples, so how could local law enforcement
The samples couldn't have been taken before
no,
legislation.
Bob, come on, man. It was there, and everyone knows it, Bob. There's 24 samples. But furthermore, Denise, we've also created a public safety database, a public safety dashboard, 40,000 hits a day from law enforcement officers. We're putting license plate readers in the hands of law enforcement officers. We've driven homicides down by a steeper degree over these last 3 years than at any time in Maryland history since numbers started being taken in 1975. And we can continue to save lives.
I guess law enforcement is not real impressed with your record, since the FOPs all around the state have endorsed my campaign for governor over the incumbent Democratic governor of Maryland. So the police are not real impressed with your record.
And they did that before, and they did that in other days.
You just took me to the next subject.
Key is saving lives.
Absolutely.
The key is saving lives, and that's what we need to do as a state, and we can do it with better technology, with a state government that's actually working, with a DNA lab and a crime lab that's actually
people
functioning.
who are innocent, Governor.
Come on.
Okay, let's move on to something, because you're already there. Let's talk about something else that has been brought up, which is campaign ads, which both of you have been talking about. We received numerous questions from WJZ viewers on campaign ads. A man named Andrew from Graysonville asked both candidates, at what point did you decide to go negative with your campaign ads, and why do you think it's an effective approach to winning an election? Governor O'Malley.
There are a number of ads that our campaign has been running, Denise, and a campaign is about choices, and the candidates offer two stark and different choices. And I have an obligation to make sure that the public understands, notwithstanding the former governor's fantasy world, that he never raised taxes because he didn't raise fees, even though he raised property taxes, even though he raised college tuition by 40%, even though he raised tolls and the like. I have an obligation to point that out. And more importantly, I have an obligation to point out that in much easier times, he chose to cut education, cut school construction, cut college education, and thereby making college tuition much more expensive. And I've made a different set of choices. So we have an obligation to compare and contrast and put those contrasts to the public. Having said that, I'm proud of the 5,700 jobs that we've created at the Port of Baltimore through a public-private partnership, and we've run ads on that. I'm proud of the fact that in Maryland, we're going to be building the next generation of electric drive car here at Allison, and I'm proud of the fact that the state was able to make that happen in partnership with GM. I'm proud of the businesses on Main Street that are opening, and I'm proud of the new startups that are happening in our state in life science and biotech and the private sector. And so we have been running those ads as well. But we also have a duty to show where the contrasts are in the choice that the people of our state have to make here of whether we move forward or whether we slip to the policies of the past, where Maryland was not making progress, but the governor, former governor, was spending a lot more money than we do.
124 billion to 101 billion, Governor. You cannot, no ad, no crazy negative ad will overcome that fact. Now, the answer to the question, who was it, Denise?
This was Graysonville, from Graysonville. Andrew from Graysonville.
Andrew, thanks for calling us. Thanks for contacting Denise. The incumbent Democratic governor of the bluest state in the country since March has run a series of pretty over-the-top negative ads. Now, I have to tell you, just to be real frank, March, April, May, June, July, August, most of those negative ads made up all the difference in the polls. We were started 10 down, and by the end of those negative ads, we were even in the polls. Blaming me for the Louisiana oil spill was maybe your worst moment, and you yourself said that was a strategic mistake. And
I didn't blame you for the oil spill.
It's my time now. That ad helped us. My second favorite ad was when you cut and pasted 4 or 5 different interviews together, and whatever that ad was, but from different interviews you cut and paste. Now, here's the problem, Andrew. You have a governor unwilling to talk about or try to market what he's done over the past 4 years. From March on, in the safest state in the world, with all these elected officials here supporting you, with all the money, all the advantage of incumbency, you've gone almost uniformly negative. And that speaks volumes, Andrew, about what Governor O'Malley feels and thinks and believes about what he's done over the past 4 years. Now, the simple answer to the question, Denise, is negatives work. Negatives work. You go out there and you talk about tuition freezes and don't talk about the fact that overall costs at College Park's gone up so dramatically. People might buy them. The problem, though, in this campaign was you went so negative so early, way too early. So we've had an opportunity to respond. We didn't have the money to respond earlier. We do now, which is why we are responding. And we're going to respond, Governor, trust me, through Election Day. So, Andrew, the lesson here is, unfortunately, at times, in certain media markets, negatives might work. But ultimately, the narrative of this campaign will be when you're the incumbent Democratic governor of the bluest state in the country, and you spend, and in fact, you bought ads on our radio show, which was really interesting because the Democratic Party filed suit claiming that the sponsors of our radio show were illegal contributors to the Ehrlich campaign. So the fact you bought ads on our radio show led me to believe you were an illegal sponsor of the Ehrlich campaign, which was good for us, but it's all silly and juvenile and unfortunately part of when people fight over power.
Denise, very quickly. For 4 years on that radio show, the former governor has been going negative on everything that we're trying to do in the toughest of times to move our state forward. And the former governor was quoted in the paper recently saying that smart people have advised him not to talk about his record. For good reason. He increased state spending. I'm not talking about the stimulus dollars. By the way, Bob, you never turned down a single dollar from the federal government when you were governor. But he increased state spending by 33%, more in a 4-year period than Glendenning or Schaefer. And yet, Denise, he increased property taxes, increased tolls and fees, increased college tuition, and Maryland was not making much progress. We were spending more, but we weren't moving forward.
The largest tax increase in Maryland history, $1.4 billion. That was your answer. You also transferred a couple $1 billion from existing cash accounts. You also took $3.7 billion of stimulus. After each episode, after each chapter, you said, it's cured. Let's have a press conference.
No, actually,
We're
I never
done.
said that.
It's my time. You said, in fact, you had a victory press conference with Mike Bush and Mike Miller after the major tax increase, after the largest tax increase in Maryland history. You all got together, just like you did, by the way, when you beat those kids going to those schools in Baltimore City. We had a big victory press conference then. You can't have these victory press conferences as though people don't have memories. To the tune of $6 billion after each time you said, it's cured, it's fixed, good times are coming. We have not created one net new job in the state. You've doubled the unemployment rate under your watch, and you know it. Those facts speak for themselves. $124 billion worth of budgets as opposed to 101. That's a difference of $23 billion. Surplus, $1 billion, right there when I left office, spent immediately. This is your record. You have to live with it.
Denise, we've never declared mission accomplished. You may be confusing me with our former president, President Bush. This has been hard. Every single day we've made tough choices. But for all of the phony promises that you make about cutting people's taxes, when the former governor was in, Denise, he didn't lower taxes for anyone. Say what you will about the one penny that, yes, we asked every Marylander to pay so that we could come through this storm without you having to read about your state in a category with California and others. But the fact of the matter is, Denise, we made changes to our income tax that actually had the net effect when you put the penny on the sales and the income together, along with increasing the earned income tax credit and increasing personal exemptions, which helps seniors. We actually lowered taxes for 41% of Maryland filers. When the former governor was in, he didn't lower taxes on any group of people, though he fought like heck to protect loopholes for big corporations. You know,
that's that class warfare stuff. Denise, it's just, you know what? The reason I'm running in this campaign is because of that class warfare stuff. And last year, and I was thinking about running for this race, so many people came up to me and said, enough, we're drawing a line in the sand. Enough of your tax increases, enough of federal preemption, enough of always looking to government to cure our problems. Tax warfare is not a very good tax policy. The millionaires tax, the tech tax, the Walmart taxes. We tried to cut taxes, as you know, when I was governor. The Maryland General Assembly, Mike Bush, Mike Biller, wouldn't allow us to do it. Didn't pass those bills. So again, folks, that's the reason we're running. What you just heard, blaming President Bush, the class warfare stuff, This election is about enough, drawing the line, enough of this stuff.
Okay.
We care about jobs and job creation and getting the state going again. That's why I'm running this race.
I'll draw the line there, and let's move on to another subject if we can. This is a subject that I think in the last 4 years has become even more important to a lot of people living in the state of Maryland. That's the issue of immigration. We had a letter from someone named Roy in Baltimore who wants to know your stand on illegal immigrants who are living here in Maryland.
Governors deal with very specific issues concerning immigration: driver's licenses, in-state tuition, and funding. I vetoed in-state tuition as governor. My record's very clear. We tried to get driver's licenses strengthened in the state of Maryland, but the legislature stopped me through their regulatory process. It's called AELR. Governor O'Malley supported a bill, first a two-tiered bill, and then he signed a bill that allows illegal immigrants in the state of Maryland to get 6 years before they comport with the federal law, which I think is a really bad public policy. Third, Denise, you have this issue of spending, the Casa de Marylands of the world. If the Casa de Marylands of the world would just follow their original charter, if they were really about assimilation, recent immigrants into this country, teaching capitalism, democracy, teaching our culture, our singular American culture, economic empowerment, I'd be standing on the rooftop saying, good for you, Casa de Maryland. We'll help you, we'll fund you, we'll assist you, good for you. Unfortunately, what groups such as CASA have done over the past few years is take state tax money and print booklets to assist illegal immigrants from the long arm of the law. Our tax money is now going to assist illegal behavior. That's the clear line that really has to be drawn in this campaign. That's the clear line the taxpayers are demanding. We are a pro-immigrant country. German of the Year, 1996. Proud of it. Irish, proud of it. We all should be proud of it. Some of us were forced here in slave ships. We all came here. We're all immigrants. This is about a singular American culture. Capitalism, equal opportunity, unlimited opportunity. That's what we should be engaged in. Not this sort of stuff of picking and choosing and pretending as though laws don't count. Why should we pretend laws don't count? Driver's license laws count. In-state tuition laws count. Taxpayer dollars count. Enforcing the law counts. Arizona's out of control because Republicans, grant you, I know you like to beat up on Republicans. I agree with you on this one. And Democrat administrations have failed us. They failed our country. They failed our taxpayer. They failed our way of life.
Governor O'Malley?
Immigration's a huge challenge for our country, Denise. And in generations past, our country's innovation, our entrepreneurship, our work ethic has been fueled time and time again by newly arriving Americans. What we have now is a very dysfunctional system of immigration. And we need to make the changes, bring people together from both sides of the aisle to craft a comprehensive solution to immigration reform. Only our federal government can enforce our borders. They need to do a better job of that. Only our federal government can enforce immigration laws, and they also need to do a better job of that. But Congress needs to come together across the partisan divide and find a way so that people who are here can apply for citizenship, obey the law, and pay their taxes and live in the full light and openness and transparency of our American society. I do not believe, as the former governor has said before, that multiculturalism is bunk. I believe that we are all in this together. I don't believe, as the former governor has said before, that multiculturalism is crap. I believe that we are a multicultural people in a multicultural country, and from many comes one strong nation. And I also believe that we should not blame new Americans for the problems that our country is going through right now. It's wrong. New Americans did not drive Wall Street into a ditch. New Americans did not have the regulators look the other way while credit markets were crashed and driven into the ground with false vehicles for investment. New Americans did not get us into a series of unfunded wars that have driven up debt. I believe we're all in this together, and we've got to find a better solution to our immigration challenge.
Governor, I'd love to debate you on federal housing policy at some point because I was a member of the House Banking Committee.
I'm so sorry, Governor Ehrlich. I don't want to interrupt you, but it's time, because I agree with you. I wish we had all night, and we don't. It is time now for our closing statement so that we can get off on time. I do appreciate it. And due to the coin toss,
I'm going over.
You go first.
I think I go last, according to the coin toss. Yes.
My understanding is...
I went first.
Okay.
Whatever,
Yes, go ahead, Mr.
whatever you say,
Governor
Denise.
O'Malley.
We have a lot of work ahead of us. We are on the cusp of a couple of decades that could be Maryland's decades if we make this change in our new economy. So far this year, we have had a better year of job creation than we've had since the year 2000. But we have a lot of work to do right now in order to make up for everything that we've lost in this horrible global and national recession. In this competition, in this change to a new economy, there will be states that are winners and there will be states that are losers. The states that win will be states that are able to move forward, making progress in this transformation by improving their workforce, improving their schools, making college more affordable, and harnessing the power of the innovation economy. In every tough fight, I have always been on your side. And right now, especially in these times, we need a governor who's on our side. The big banks, big utilities, the big mortgage companies, they can afford all of the government affairs specialists and lobbyists that money can buy. But we need a governor who's on our side, who looks at every challenging question in terms of what's best for the people of Maryland, what's best for hardworking families as they plan for their own future and do their part to give all of our children that better future that they deserve. Thanks very much. I need your help.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Denise. This is tough. Thanks for doing this. What you just heard, everybody, is why I'm running. You've heard this sort of class warfare, the big, and it's interesting that the only operating casino in Maryland today has supported you $16,000 worth, by the way. So this stuff about class warfare and stuff about big being evil and nasty, I'd love to debate you on federal housing policy when we get an opportunity. We will have that opportunity during the course of this campaign. I'm running because I love Maryland. We had a pretty good track record. Record employment, record surplus, a lot of good things happened. Charter schools, Chesapeake Bay Restoration Act, transportation bills, disability, the ICC, brownfields reform. All of these initiatives were part of our record as governor. Thought I was retired, but so many people came and said, look, Bob, think about it. We don't like the direction of the state. We want you to come and change Maryland again for the better. That's why we're running. We've had record unemployment, record deficits, record loss of job creation, the largest tax increase in Maryland history. Folks, we can do better. Your opportunity to do better will be November 2nd. I thank you very much. I was proud to serve as your governor, humbled by the fact I was your governor, humbled to be running again. Governor, I thank you very much for your time today.
We thank you,
Godspeed.
sir. Thank you very much for watching us. Thank you, Baltimore Jewish Council, for supporting and sponsoring tonight's debate. Thank you for watching. Please remember, cast your vote on Election Day. Good night.
Thank you for watching. This has been a presentation from WJZ 13, Maryland's news station.